a Swarovski Company, where she has been in party plan direct sales for over the last 20 years, and also spent 10 years in pharmaceutical sales and events planning prior to staying home with her children. Betsey is an empty nester with two 20-something children and two golden retrievers. You are not alone.
I'm not alone.
She joined her first direct sales company when her children were small as a way of talking to someone besides Barney and Bob the builder. She discovered quickly that she's not only loved the social outlet, but more importantly, helping women get more of what they wanted in life for themselves and their families. Her passion is helping women learn who God created them to be through the lens of building their own Touchstone Crystal business. Betsey built her star thrower team at Touchstone to almost $5 million in annual sales, with over 1,000 in her downline organization. Through it all, she has discovered a single simple component that has been the key to her success, and she is excited to share that with us today. Welcome, Betsey.
Thanks, Della. That was so sweet. Even if I wrote it, right? Great to see all of you. Is the sound fine? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to press start on my timer here. So this could just as easily be called the power of curiosity, honestly. Before I dive in, I want to give a little Mother's Day, a little word about Mother's Day. I was blessed to have not just one mother, but two mothers. And so I'm wearing two pieces of jewelry today that are not found in my catalog. The first one is this charm bracelet from my mother who raised me. This was her charm bracelet from Europe in the 1950s. But I'm also wearing a beautiful ring from the mother who gave me up for adoption at age 19. I met her when I turned 50 years old. Both of my mothers have passed away. They're both in heaven. They both had wanted to meet each other at some point, and now they have. And I think they're probably best friends. So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom. So here I am today. Yeah. So now that you're all crying, and I'm about to cry. So I was a journalism major in college, and I never became a reporter, but I always wanted to be Oprah. The funny thing is that curiosity about people is actually how I built a really large organization, a volunteer sales organization. I don't manage people, I coach people and lead people. And so questions have really been the basis of how I have built emerging leaders over all these years. Like I said, my mission statement is to help women learn who God created them to be through the lens of building their own Touchstone Crystal business. I found that I could bring out the very best in people when I know what the questions are to ask them. So a couple things on your table that you each have. I have given you each a chip clip of some color, and I'm going to tell you what the chip clip is for, just don't hurt yourself. And then I've given you two index cards, and I'm going to tell you what to write on the index cards over the next couple of minutes. So these will be things that you can take home with you. Okay, let's see, I have a clicker. There we go, power questions. All right, so Lynn Conway is someone that I've been coaching with for the last 5 or 6 years, and she loves questions as much as I do. We were sort of like soulmates when we started working together. She is actually a consultant for our company as well, and the company has graciously allowed me to train with her once a week as a coach. I put her little QR code up there because all of the questions and things that you're going to be hearing from me also come from what Lynn Conway has to share. So in case you're interested in seeing more of her website and what she offers as a business coach, and she has a daily e-newsletter and that kind of thing that I just love to read, so I thought you might as well. So Zig Ziglar, this is my very favorite quote. Zig Ziglar says you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. So questions allow us to help other people get more of what they want. How else am I going to know what they want unless we learn to ask the good questions? So I was kind of like Della. I started making a list of questions too. So I thought of just some of the general benefits. We make people feel special and heard when we ask questions. We can clarify things. We help people figure out what they're thinking by saying it out loud. We learn a lot about a lot of things. We learn how to serve people better in business and in life. If we're in sales, we can sell them exactly what they were looking for or help them figure out what it is that they're looking for. With questions, we can build rapport and we can find things in common. We can build relationships, right? And we can help people get unstuck. So for the next couple of minutes, I just want to dive in and talk about 3 key areas, and hopefully you're going to be able to draw your own dotted lines. I'm going to be telling a couple stories about what I do, but I think you'll be able to draw your own dotted lines that will relate to you. And when we're done at the end, if we have a minute, I'm going to ask you to share out loud. I'm going to ask you a question, which is, what was your takeaway from the last couple of minutes? And I would love for each of you for some of you to share from the floor what your takeaway is. So I always let people know ahead of time that you're going to be quizzed at the very end. So, in case some of you are a little bit squishy about questions, there might be some of you in the room. I want to tell you a little story. There was a gal named Andy on my team years ago who was a very seasoned leader in our industry. And I loved working with her, but she was stuck. And we were trying to figure it out, and I realized that if she could learn to ask more questions of her team members and of potential team members, she would probably not be as stuck as she was. So one day we were discussing this concept again, and she started to cry, and she said, I was taught never to ask questions. She was in her 50s at the time. I was taught that questions were rude and impertinent, and I thought, I would have never thought of that in a million years, that she would have felt that way. So if any of you were raised that way, hopefully this will give you just a little bit of a breakthrough. Okay, this quote is attributed to Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know if that's actually true. I kind of wonder. It doesn't sound like something Teddy would have said, but I didn't know him very well. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, I know you've heard that phrase before. So my question is, how many of you sell something? Anybody here sell? Oh, a lot of you sell something. Okay. Well, let's talk about customers. So our questions help people narrow down what they really want, right? So it helps them to flesh out loud, what it is that they need, and then they feel heard and they feel cared for. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. They're going to know, like, and trust us if we care enough to stop and ask questions instead of saying, okay, you want to buy a car? Great. Let me show you all the cars I have, and I'm going to tell you everything about the cars on my lot instead of narrowing it down. So that's something that's sales 101. But in our own enthusiasm, we often get carried away. So let me tell you a little story. I started selling in the party plant industry. My first company, this was 21 years ago, I started selling home decor with a company called Southern Living at Home. Anybody remember that line?
Yes.
Oh, loved it. Loved it. Let me tell you how much I loved it, ladies. I would go to a party and I'd have it all laid out there, and I would tell you 5 ways to use every single thing on that table. Tamara, actually, she's my assistant, my dear friend. She knew me back then, and she actually was one of my hostesses. She could probably say, yes, she talked for. So one time I did a party and I talked for 45 minutes. I talked for 45 minutes. Anybody did a party with me after that? No. I did sell a few things because I gave them some good ideas, but you know what I could have done? I could have used that time getting to know them a whole lot better. So this is where the chip clip comes into place. The chip clip is to remind us not to talk so much. Okay, don't do it because it will really hurt yourself. You can clip it to you or something in your office, but the chip clip, stop talking, build rapport instead, okay? I didn't do a very good job of that the night that I talked for 45 minutes about my product line because I was so excited. I wasn't wrong in doing that, but my higher goal of getting to know those ladies was wasted, right? I lost the opportunity. All right. Another example is in my sponsoring conversations. This is the heart of me right here. So in my industry, you know, what we do is build teams, right? We build teams. We build teams within our company based on relationships. It's super easy for somebody to come to a consultant and say, oh, I think I might want to sell Touchstone. And what's the first thing that they do, that consultant? Oh, that's so much fun. Oh my gosh, we can go to a conference together. We can be roommates. You're going to make so much money. Your husband and you can go on a trip. Oh my gosh, you can have so much jewelry. You're going to have a great bank account. And all she did was say, I think I might want to work with your company. that enthusiasm gets in the way. Instead, what I've learned to do, so the problem is, I spent years thinking that if I was just sunshiny enough, if I was just, cute enough, had all the right words, that my team would explode. This was, 15, 20 years ago. Until I learned that I needed to ask a whole lot of questions to make her feel heard and respected and to honor the process. So, this is where one of your first note cards comes into play. And this is, you're going to grab a note card and a pen. And on the first note card, you're going to write the letters W-A-I-T. Y-M-I. Kathy, did you like that?
I told you about that.
You and I have that in common. We had that one in common. W-A-I-T. Write that on your note card. You're going to take that home. Take that home with you. So what I have learned is that instead, if someone comes to me, here, this is just in my world, you can translate this to your world. Someone comes to me and says, I think I might like to sell Touchstone. Instead of throwing up all over them with all of my excitement, I'm going to say, that's so great. Tell me why. Ooh. And then I grab my chip clip and my why am I talking little card in my brain, and I listen for the answer. And then you know what else I do? I ask her another question. So what would that be like for your family? Have you ever tried anything like this before? Would it be fun? Would you want to travel? How busy would you want to be? What was it like the last time you tried this? What are you really good at? What do you think you'd be good at in this? So it really is about building that rapport with people, finding things in common. Okay, so W-A-I-T, why am I talking? Here's the crux of it for me. What comes out of someone's mouth is what's true for her. What comes out of her mouth is what's true for her. Now, obviously people sometimes will fudge things, but at the core, when I'm talking to somebody sincerely and I'm asking her good questions, what comes out of her mouth is what's going to be true for her. That's all I care about. So when I'm in a sponsored conversation, I don't care about the answer. I care about the process and that she feels heard and respected and honored. So another segment is in helping leaders grow. I like asking questions where I can help people get unstuck. So a team member might come to me and say, I just did 3 parties and I didn't do very well. Okay, well let's talk about this. And I have a series of questions that I'll go through. Well, what do you think caused that? Instead of, because I know a couple things, and I can say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, here's this form, and here's this worksheet. Instead, I'm going to ask some really good questions and try to help her identify what happened. What do you think caused that? Is the first one. Why do you think it happened? And here's what's really funny. I was taught this. If someone says they don't know the answer to a question, I will sometimes be a real pain and I'll turn it around and I'll say, well, if you did know the answer, what do you think it would be? So it's a really funny thing to ask somebody, but again, it does get them thinking like, well, maybe I do know the answer, maybe I could think of something that would come out of my mouth. Again, what comes out of your mouth is what's true for them. Listen for broad words. This is another big key. When someone comes to me and says, I'd love to sell Touchstone, but I don't think I would fail. I just don't want to fail. Our tendency would be to say, oh, you won't fail, right? We want to just reassure, because that's what we do as girlfriends, we reassure. Instead, I'm going to ask her a question. What does failure mean? I don't know what she means. She says she doesn't want to fail. Or she says, I really want to succeed. Great. What does success mean? I got to figure what that is, because if we can quantify it, if we can write it down on paper, we can help her get what she wants or help her to avoid what she needs to avoid. Okay, let's switch over to the social world real fast. So Dale Carnegie said, ask questions that people will enjoy answering. So kind of like me going back to being Oprah. I had a gal on my team a while back. I didn't know her very well. She was doing okay in her parties, and I was trying to coach her from long distance. And I said, well, tell me what's going really well at your parties. She goes, I am an ace at doing a party presentation. I've got my note cards. I know exactly what to say. I love standing around the jewelry table, talking about jewelry, telling them all the things. And I said, well, then what happens? And she goes, and then I go sit in the corner. Like, oh, okay. You go sit in the corner. Well, this explains an awful lot. She didn't know how to engage with people. She didn't know how to build rapport with people. That was scary for her. So we worked on some questions that she could have in her back pocket and take to every setting, every party that she did, every networking event that she did, and that really made a difference. So I was thinking, like, in a setting like this that is social / business, what are the kinds of questions that I walk in? Because let's face it, we focus on ourselves. We get really nervous and scared coming to an event like this. We're like, do I look cute enough? Do I look too businessy? Am I scary looking? Like my hair, like why did I do my hair today? And so some of the questions that we can use in this setting. What brings you here today? Hi, I'm Betsy. What brings you here today, right? Another one is this your first time? So what I'm trying to do is build rapport. I'm trying to draw her out because that's gonna make me feel a whole lot more comfortable if I can ask her some good questions. Do you know a lot of people here? If I'm new, do you know a lot of people here? Maybe I go to do something. What kinds of people do you want to meet? If I'm the one who's been here a while and she's brand new, who do you want to meet? Who are you looking to meet today? And of course there's the old standby. Where are you from? There's the where do you live? How did you get here? You know, those kind of basic questions. Have some questions in your back pocket before you go to an event. If it's a truly social event, how do you know the host or hostess? Who else do you know here? I don't recognize anybody. Can I sit with you for a second until I meet some more people? Getting confident in social settings means taking the focus off of ourselves. And here's your second note card. FAYC. Forget about yourself completely. The beautiful thing about that is if I'm forgetting about me, what am I doing? I'm focusing on you. That's what I really care about. So a couple of thoughts about this. Be sincerely curious and interested. Other people are literally so interested. I would give anything to sit down with each one of you and ask you like 20 questions about your life, because every one of you has a great story to tell. And that's important, that we want to be in social settings where that's just an obvious, like that's just your bent. People are so interesting. A really fun tip is that when people are asking you questions, keep your answers short when you're in a social or business setting. 2 to 3 sentences, that kind of thing. Don't give them a long paragraph of an answer because you have just now absorbed all the oxygen in the room. Keep it short, and then the next point is after a couple questions directed at you, flip it, turn the tables, start asking her or him questions. It's a tennis match. You want to keep that ball going back and forth. All right, the last little segment is the friends and family. So years ago, our home office, our Swarovski home office is in Rhode Island, and they invited us to come out for a really cool opportunity to listen to a world-renowned coach. And she was teaching us how to coach our teams. One of my top leaders in my organization was there, and her name was Shauna, and she just was so enthralled by this whole thing. She got in her car and she drove back from Rhode Island to Winchester, New York, loaded for bear. And she called me the next morning. She goes, I was so excited to ask Dom, her husband, all these questions. So I was asking him all these questions all night long. And she goes, and he got so mad and he walked out. She didn't understand that it's not about the questions. It's about the answers. It's about the closeness that it creates. So, super important. Okay, one other really interesting key idea. This is something that for those of you with children, maybe 4 or 5 and up, even with grown children, you can use this with other people, but this is shifting gears a little bit, but still in that family friends realm. You know, it's super easy to just tell our kids to do stuff, tell our friends, girl, you need to buy those shoes, right? Girl, you need to change jobs, right? But there are 2 questions that I found to be super useful with family and friends, especially when our kids maybe fail at something, get in trouble, whatever. Anybody ever have a kid in trouble? Right. So the 2 questions after the fact, how did that work out for you? Like, kindly, how did that work out for you? And the second one is another reflection question. What would you have done differently knowing what you know now? And you can even use that with the 6-year-old after the fact. Like, they just can't get their act together. That 18-year-old just can't get their act together. What would you have done differently knowing what you know now? Okay, a couple of quick wrap-ups. Questions to avoid. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? So those interrogation questions, also leading questions, unless you're in court, you don't want to ask leading questions where you are trying to get somebody to give you a particular answer. Questions are to be open so that you're learning something, not so that you can get somebody, manipulate somebody into saying something. So that's key. Second is give people a chance to answer, right? Silence really is golden. It kind of is the why am I talking, but I have a tendency to just jump in and like keep badgering you with questions because I just want to know faster. But we have to allow them time to formulate their answers. Third one is to use open-ended questions rather than yes, no. And the fourth is that follow-up questions are actually the most interesting. When somebody asks me a follow-up question, I feel like I was heard and you really cared about what I just said, and that's really cool. So, finally, there's one last question that works everywhere, and it's this. Can you tell me a little more about that? When you are stuck and you don't know what else to ask, you're in a scenario with a coworker, you're in a scenario with an employee, with someone in a volunteer organization, someone in your family, and you know there's more to the story and you can't figure out how to get to the bottom of something. The best question is, can you tell me a little more about that? Gives you more understanding, gives you more time to think, it opens the person up, it honors them, and gives them space. Because again, what comes out of their mouth is what's true for them, right? Okay, we've got just one more minute. Are we fine on time to do that? Okay, I'm gonna turn the tables and I'm going to ask you a question. Who would like to share, just in the next 1 minute or so, real quickly, what was your biggest takeaway, a question or an idea that resonated with you? Just shout it out.
About having something in your back pocket.
Right.
I heard that from my mother.
Oh.
That's why I went to get my teacher's license, because no matter what you do in life, you'll always have it in your back pocket.
In your back pocket.
But that's a really amazing concept about what's in our back pocket for all of us. So you just got me a whole.
Oh, there we go. Hey. Thank you. Good. Any other takeaways? Yes, ma'am.
I kept thinking when you were asking these questions that it's not really a question-answer thing. You're leading them to discovery.
Yes, that's the
And
word.
when that discovery happens, it's the best way to learn.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you. That's a great word. Thank you for that. Love it. Yes.
I think it was a good refresher because sometimes I listen to respond, like, and I'm already formulating like, oh, me too. Like sometimes even when we try to relate, but then it comes off like we're making it about us. Like I fall into that a lot. So the follow-up question thing that you said is really great because sometimes I forget that. Even if I want to say it, I'm trying to relate. It could come off the wrong way.
I get it. I do the same thing. I get it. Anybody else?
I think it's just great because I've never had the opportunities. It's like your opportunity to share about yourself. You're always thinking about me. You know, like I want you to know about me. So it's good to I get that reminder to stop and listen and really learn about someone else because in turn then that really still becomes about you because you're making that impact.
Yes, I love that. I love how you said that. Yes, Yvette.
I think what I like was kind of a refresher is almost everything we do with teams. You can call it a team of individuals or whatever, and to get the best result on whatever the goal is of the group is to get to know each other better, so that you're more successful and you learn what people's strengths and weaknesses are, so that you can bring the best out for everybody.
Yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. One more. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the powers of asking questions, giving people the space to be heard, is that they are heard. And life runs so fast now that a lot of people don't get heard, and they're hidden voices in my life. So this is bringing them to the surface.
So well said.
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
You have a good question for really, really shy people that like really struggle to get them to talk.
To get them to talk?
Yes.
Is it a social setting? Like at a party or something?
Yeah.
If they're really shy, I'm looking for something that's truly in common, and I might just go with the obvious, like what shoes is she wearing? Does she have something on? Does she have her hair a certain way? I would go with the obvious thing that's gonna be really safe for her to talk about.
Can I answer to that?
Yes, Kathy, for sure.
So I find often, a good idea is to engage with them to tell a story about themselves. Storytelling to me is a big part of sales and all of that. So if she's out of her element, and just say, well, tell me a little bit about how you arrived here, or just a story is always good. And verse it that way, because everybody loves to tell a story.
I love that. Thank you, ladies. I hope that was fun and informational.